In this video, I'm going to be talking about what happens when we shift one side of the market, that is demand, and leave supply alone, and then shift supply and leave demand alone, and what the consequent effect is on equilibrium. And again, equilibrium, as we noted last time, is this short-term condition of balance in a market as to stable price and stable quantity in a very short run. And what we're doing here, and we're a little bit cramped on space, but I think the point should be able to get made is, what if we shift demand first in this top panel here, and we'll do both a rightward shift and a leftward shift in order to see what the effect on equilibrium is. And then we'll shift supply, and again, leaving the other side of the market alone, and once to the right and the other to the left, in order to see what the effect is on equilibrium. And notice I've started with the condition of D0 and S0, and the zero subscript is often used to denote some initial condition, some base condition 0. And notice that the equilibrium conditions have already sort of mapped out, and it's appropriate to put little asterisks by the equilibrium price and equilibrium quantity that we simply pronounce P star and Q star. And the fact is that because the market is in equilibrium, it's fully appropriate for us to refer to these as equilibrium conditions. So let's take a look at a market. This is just a market in general, and see what happens if we shift demand to the right. And that is, there's a rightward shift in overall demand, meaning for every particular price, there's an increase in the quantity demanded. And what happens to the equilibrium condition? Well, now we have a new condition here, don't we? And so what is going on is this. Because there's an increase in demand, which is what a rightward shift is. A rightward shift is an increase in the overall demand function. We know there's going to be more quantity being exchanged at every price, and so more quantity will be clearing in the market, but it'll also be clearing at a higher price. So I'll go ahead and change that to the new equilibrium price of P1. So what's happening here is the fact that for whatever reason, while supply has remained constant at every price level, the demand curve has shifted. There's an increase in demand. It could be an increase in the number of buyers. It could be an increase in buyers' incomes. Maybe there's a rising price of a substitute that's in a different market from this, and as a result, this good is now more attractive. But one thing we know is that whenever demand for a good is rising, we know there's going to be more quantity exchanged. And by the way, it's going to go at a higher price. And won't sellers want to take advantage of that increased demand to provide more output at higher prices? And isn't that really what the law of supply is? And in terms of the price mechanism, we simply say that the price has been bid up. If you think of something like the stock market, if people are buying stocks, for instance, limited supply in the short run, people come in to buy, what happens invariably, higher volume quantities and higher prices. And so that's something we can see in most of our daily lives. What about a condition in which we now shift demand to the left? That is, there's a decrease in the demand curve, we'll simply call it the D1 over here, meaning that at every price there's less quantity demanded for whatever reason. We say overall demand has shifted to the left. That is, it could be due to things like a decreased number of buyers. It could be the fact that there is a decrease in the price of a substitute good for this good in question, and as a result, buyers demand less of this good. If they demand less of this good, what does that mean to quantity? Very simply, there's going to be less quantity exchanged, and so as a result, the quantity goes in the other direction. So we're reversing the condition, and what often happens is that the price tends to fall, and it depends upon the market as to how great the fall is, but the price goes down, and one of the reasons why is if the price falls, suppliers will be willing and able to provide less output available for sale at a lower price. And buyers have left this market for whatever reason. It could be some good is on its way to becoming obsolete, and as a result, it'll keep shifting left until it truly is obsolete. And so as a result, we see the price collapse as a result of this. And it could be due to all the other factors that we talked about last time with regard to the determinants of demand. It could be a reduction in buyers' incomes. It could be an increase in taxes, which shift the demand for all goods to the left. And once again, I reiterate something that I have talked about before, and that is the idea of keeping our eyes on the origin in all these graphs. If you have something going to the left, that is to the origin, and that means that there's a decrease in whatever is moving left, and something is moving right, whether it's demand or supply or quantity, whatever, moving away from the origin, or even price on this axis, moving away from the origin means it's increasing. Moving toward the origin, it's decreasing. Okay? So those are demand shifts. And to finish up this discussion of what we call market dynamics, and that is the idea that we can leave one side of the market alone, shift the other. What about a rightward shift in supply? And so now, as a result, sellers are willing to provide more units of output at every particular price. So we have a rightward shift or an increase in supply. Rightward implies that there's an increase. And so what happens? As a result of this particular movement, maybe it's new sellers entering the market. New sellers are coming into the market, or it could be there's a reduction in the cost of doing business, and so sellers are now more eager and willing to provide output at various prices. And as a result, there's going to be more quantity that gets exchanged in the market. And then the other effect is a price effect, which simply means this: if there are more sellers, or if there's more supply for whatever reason, it tends to be the case that, and we're assuming the demand hasn't changed here, then what is the effect on price? Price is going to decrease. And we see this happening all the time, don't we? There's new competition in the market for whatever it is, maybe oil changes. If there are 20 new oil change locations that open in a city, we would expect more people to get oil changes because of the fact that the price has gone down, as well as just the general availability of this, or the greater availability, so more quantity at lower prices. Okay? Then the final shift we're going to do here is a leftward shift in supply. That's a decrease in overall supply, meaning something is going on with the supply function to drive everything to the left. That is, sellers are willing and able to provide fewer units for sale and at any price. And so what happens is this. There's a leftward shift in supply for various reasons. Perhaps it's a tax increase on businesses. Maybe it's a rising cost of doing business, higher labor costs. Maybe the minimum wage has risen, for instance, in your business that employs lots of minimum wage workers. Well, what happens is, if there's a leftward shift in supply, then we would expect that there would be less quantity supplied in the market. So we have a new equilibrium condition. Again, keeping the asterisks, because these are not out of equilibrium conditions, these are new equilibrium conditions. And we see the price going up. And this may be the worst of all worlds for both sides of the market. For the supply side, you could say, well, they have a higher price, but yes, they're producing a lesser quantity, and they're producing less of whatever it is they were doing. And certainly for the demand side, this can't be good. Less availability of goods being exchanged at higher prices. And so this is oftentimes synonymous with what we would call a supply shock. And that's a condition in which something has happened to reduce supply across the board. Maybe sellers are exiting the market for whatever reason. Perhaps it's increased government regulation that makes doing this business less attractive. Several years ago we saw an increase in regulation of gas stations. Gas stations' compliance costs went way up due to regulatory concerns. A number of them closed down. That certainly had an upward effect on price without question. So I hope this is helpful at allowing you to understand what happens to equilibrium as it can change over time. And again, this is somewhat busy, but it's all contained within your textbook as well. And hopefully this explanation of what the possible causes might be is helpful to your understanding of these dynamics. And again, feel free to contact me individually if I can help any further.